Okay, so let's start off speed, distance, and time. So in this presentation, I'll be solving all the questions in this chapter, meaning all the types of questions, and I'll also explain the concepts behind them. So every concept in speed, distance, and time, I have involved one question, and any question outside this presentation will either be a combination of two or more concepts that is involved, right? So let's start off, right? So you can also try to solve the questions. You can either pause the video and try to solve the question, or you can see what the solution is as and when I solve it. So let's start. So first question: P and Q are 300 kilometers apart, and at 8 a.m. buses X and Y left P and Q simultaneously for Q and P respectively. If the speed of the buses X and Y are 40 kilometers per hour and 60 kilometers per hour respectively, when do they meet? Okay, so let's assume there are two places, right? P, Q. The distance is 300 kilometers, and X left from P towards Q and Y left from Q towards P. Now how do you solve this question? Let's assume they meet somewhere in the middle. Not exactly in the middle, they meet somewhere along the P and Q. So let's consider the point they meet at, which is A kilometers from the place P, and so from the place Q it will be 300 minus A kilometers, right? So now how do you form the equation for this? So it's basically A by 40, where the speed is given, which is equal to 300 A minus 60. Why are we equating this? Because the time taken for them to reach the point at which they meet will be same. So cancel this, so it will come up to 10 A is equal to 1200, right? So that will basically, A will be 120. Okay, so what this means is that they meet at a point which is 120 kilometers from the point P. Okay, so they meet at a point which is 120 kilometers, and what time do they meet? So now since they meet at 120 kilometers, and we know that P at the P speed of X, which is starting at P, is 40, so therefore X will meet Y after traveling for a time of 3 hours from P, right? So the time at which they meet is basically 8 a.m. plus 3 hours, which is nothing but 11 a.m. right? So the answer is 11 a.m. They meet at 11 a.m. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question. Okay, so this seems to be interesting. In a 1,000 meter marathon, runner X beats runner, sorry, this should be runner Y by 100 meters. Runner Y beats runner Z by 50 meters in a 500 meter race. If runner X beats runner Z by 30 seconds in a 2000 meter race, how long would runner Y take to travel a distance of 3000 meters, right? So your first reaction when you look at this question is like you're confused, you don't know what to do. So this is how you go about it, right? So basically, you know, speed is directly proportional to distance, right? And speed is indirectly proportional to time, right? So this is one thing you have to keep in mind, and I'm sure if you have just brushed through the concepts, you will know what this means. Okay, so speed is directly proportional to distance and speed is indirectly proportional to time. Okay, so basically what this means is S1 by S2 is D1 by D2 is equal to D1 by D2, and S1 by S2 is equal to T2 by T1. So this is one very important thing to keep in mind, and this will be the fundamental concept we use in this question. Okay, so please keep this in mind. So basically this question, what you're seeing right now, an easier or a simpler version of this came in CAT 2019 slot 1, right? So if you're able to solve this question right now without my help, then definitely you would have been able to solve the question in CAT 2019 slot 1. So let's start off by solving this question. So how do we approach this question? So there are three runners, X, Y and Z. Okay, so let's take the speed of runner x as x, small x, runner y as lowercase y, and runner z as lowercase z. So these are the variables that I assign for the speed of capital X, capital Y, and capital Z. Okay, so x by y is equal to runner in. Let's look at the first condition. Runner x beats runner y by 100 meters. So basically, it's d by d minus 100, right? In this case, d is 1000, and so it becomes 1000 by 900, which is 10 by 9. Right, the ratio of the speed x and y is 10 by 9. Okay, so let's erase this and write it on the side. X by y is 10 by 9. Okay, similarly, in the next thing, it's given runner y beats runner z by 50 meters in a 500 meter race. So y by z is equal to d by d minus 50, right? So when you say runner y beats runner z, that means runner y has finished the race. He's already traveled d meters, and z is 50. Is when y finishes the race, z is 50 meters behind. So it's d minus 50 here. I hope you understand that. So it comes up to 500 by 450, which is nothing but, again, 10 by 9. Okay, so again y by z is nothing but 10 by 9. So let's cancel this and write it on the side. Okay, so now this is an important twist. See, if runner x beats runner z by 30 seconds, right? So as I already told you, speed is inversely proportional to time. So that is one very important thing to keep in mind, right? So let's assume the time taken by runner x. Let's assume the time taken by runner z to finish the race is t seconds, right? So basically, runner x by runner z is t. So this, again, let me tell you, t is this time taken by runner z, right? So t is the time taken by runner z, and since speed is inversely proportional to time, so it becomes t by t minus t minus 30, right? So t minus 30 is basically the time taken by x, and z, time taken by z is t, but since it's inversely proportional, we write the reciprocal, which is t by t minus 30, right? So now you have x by z is equal to t by t minus 30, and you can also find x by z by multiplying this and this, right? So when you multiply this and this, you get x by z as 100 by 81, right? So you can now solve to find t. Okay, so I hope you understood how you found x by z. X by z you can find this method, and you can also find x by z by multiplying this and this, and when you equate both of them, you get this equation which you can use to find t. So let's erase everything and see. Okay, so it's basically 81t is equal to 100t minus 3000. So t is basically 3000 by 19, right? So time taken by z to complete a 2000 meter race is 3000 by 19. Okay, so now we can actually find the numerical value of the speed of z. So what is the speed of z? It takes 2000 meter race by 3000 by 19 will give you the time taken by z to complete the 2000 meter race, which is nothing but 38 by 3, right? And we also have this formula, so you can find the speed of y. So now that you have found the speed of z, which is 38 by 3, using this formula you can find the speed of y, which is equal to 10 by 9 into 38 by 3, which comes as 380 by 27. Okay, and now to solve the question, how long would the runner y take to travel a distance of 3000 meters? So now we've found the speed of y, you have the distance y should travel, so you can find the speed. So 380 by 27 is the speed of y. So the time taken, so the time taken is basically 3000 by 380 into 27, right? So you cancel 0 0, and so the answer is 88,100 by 38, or 4050 by 19, right? So the time taken by y to travel a distance of 3000 meters is 4050 by 19 seconds, right? So this is the answer for this question, and I hope you understood how to solve it. If you have any further doubts, then you can write it in the description, like, or the comments below, right? So if you have this, reach out in the comments, or if you are in the WhatsApp group, you can type it in the group. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, this question is kind of tricky, but I think if you have solved this type of question before, it becomes pretty simple, right? So okay, so let's read the question. If a man travels at 3/7 of his original speed, he reaches his office 12 minutes late. Calculate the actual duration of his travel, right? So let's take his original speed as s. So the man's original speed is s, and on a particular day he travels 3/7 of his original speed, and he reaches his office 12 minutes late, right? Okay, so how do you start off the question? First, you assume the man's normal speed to be s, and the distance between his house and his office to be d, right? So let's take the time as t. Okay, so when it's d by, when he travels at 3/7 of his speed, he reaches his office t plus 12 by 60, right? Because you're taking it in hours, so he reaches 12 minutes late. But when it's d by s, he reaches at t, right? So what is the actual duration of his travel? So you have these two equations, and you are supposed to solve for t, right? So how do you do it? Okay, so let's again write it down on the side properly, and we'll go ahead with it. Okay, so d by s is equal to t, and d by 3/7s is equal to t plus 12 by 60, which is basically 1/5, which will come up to 0.2. Okay, so now let's solve this equation. So it comes up, this one comes as 7d by 3s is equal to t plus 12 by 60. Now we have d by s is equal to t as per the first formula, so it's 7 by 3 t is equal to t plus 1/5, right? So when you solve this, it becomes 4 by 3 t is equal to 1/5. Okay, so t is basically, so which gives t is basically 3 by 20, right? So the answer is 3 by 20 hours. So after solving the question, we found that the average actual duration of time is 3 by 20 hours, and when you convert this to minutes, it becomes 3 by 20 into 60 minutes, which is 9 minutes, right? So you can try solving this question by yourself, but this is how you actually start to solve the question, right? So Yeah, so you can either try to solve it by yourself, or if you have any doubts, do write to me in the comments. Okay, so now let's move to the next question. At what time between 3 and 4 o'clock are the two hands coincident? Okay, so this is one a very important concept, and before I start off, I want to tell you about the concept, right? So what is the fundamental concept behind this question? So let's assume this. Okay, so there's a clock. A clock makes a 360-degree rotation of the minute's hand every 1 hour, that is 60 minutes, right? So how many degrees is it, how many degrees is the minute hand moving every minute? So it's basically 360 by 60, which is 6 degrees, right? So the minute hand of a clock is moving 6 degrees per minute. Okay, and now let's look at the hour hand, right? Okay, so now let's look at the hours hand of the clock, right? So the hours hand of the clock is moving 360 degrees every 12 hours, right? And when you find out the degrees it's moving every minute, you calculate it like this. So it's basically 360 by 12 into 60, so it comes as half, right? So now the hour hand moves half a degree per minute. So this is the basic idea behind this question, and this is a very important concept. I hope you keep this in mind, right? So now that you just have to remember this part, right? So a minute hand moves 6 degrees per minute, and an hour hand moves half a degree per minute. If you keep this in mind, then you're pretty much set for the question. Okay, so at what time between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock does the two hands coincide? So if okay, so at now let's draw a clock, right? Okay, so every between this part and this part, or let's say every 1 hour, the hour hand moves 30 degrees, right? The hour hand moves 30 degrees. So at 3 o'clock it's basically 90 degrees. So between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, so 90 plus half into x, right? X is basically the minutes between the 3 and 4, right? So between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock there are 60 minutes, and x is basically the minute at which the two hands, that is the minute and hour hands, coincide. So 90 plus half into x is equal to 6 into x, right? So just take a minute, pause the video, see why it is half into x is equal to 6 into x. Because first, the hour hands we are considering is the hour hand is already moved 90 degrees, because it's between 3 o'clock. We have to calculate the time of coincidence between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and so it's already moved 90 degrees, plus it's going to move the time at which it coincides in minutes, it's going to move plus half into x is equal to 6x. So when you solve this, you get 90 is equal to 11x by 2, and x is basically 180 by 11, right? So we have our answer here. So the answer is in minutes is 180 by 11. So at what time does the two hands coincide between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock? So it coincides at 3 hours 180 by 11 minutes, right? So it's basically 3 hours, and 180 by So the answer for 180 by 11 is approximately 16, right? So at around 3:16.36 minutes after 3 o'clock, the minutes hand and the hour hands coincide. So this is a little bit tricky to understand, so I have explained it to the best of my ability. The concept we use is the concept we discussed in the beginning of the question, and if you've understood it, then good. If you haven't, then do reach out in the comment section below. Okay, so this is a different type of question, right? Usually you see questions on trains, and so before starting this question, let me explain a few concepts, right? So let's say two trains of length L1 and L2 are passing each other in and one train of length L1 is surpassing the train of length L2, and both of them are traveling in the same direction, and the speeds are S1 and S2, right? The time taken for the train 1 to cross train 2 is L1 by L2 by S1 minus S2. This is if they are traveling in the same direction, right? If they're traveling in the same direction, then this makes sense. If they're traveling in opposite directions, then the relative speed is the addition of both the speeds, so it's L1 plus L2 by S1 plus S2, right? So this is equal to time taken to cross time, right? So this is one a very important concept to keep in mind, right? So if they're traveling in the same direction, then the time taken for one train to overtake the other is L1 plus L2 by S1 minus S2. If they're traveling in opposite directions, then the time taken by one train to overtake the other is L1 plus L2 by S1 plus S2 equal to T, right? So this is one very important concept to keep in mind, and I think if you have studied the basics, you would have already known what these are. So now let's start answering the question. Okay, so two trains of length 150 and 250 meters run in parallel lines. When they run in the same direction, they will take 20 seconds to cross each other, right? So 150 plus 250, let's take the speed of the two trains as A and B, right? Speed of the 150 train 1 to be A, train 2 to be B. So 150 plus 250 by A in the same direction, right? So sorry, A minus B. Let me just write it properly. So 150 plus 250 by A minus B is equal to 20, right? And when they're traveling in opposite directions, that is 150 plus 250 by A plus B is equal to 5, right? So now you just have to solve for A and B, right? So find the speed of the two trains. That means you have to solve for A and B. So now let's solve for A and B on the side. So 20 is equal to A minus B, and 80 is equal to A plus B, right? So you get 2A is equal to 100, and A is equal to 50, and B is equal to 30. So the speed of train 1 in this situation, the 150 meter train is 50 meters per second, and the speed of train 2 is 30 meters per second, right? And this question was pretty much straightforward. We used the concept which I discussed at the beginning of the question. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question. Okay, so this is a little bit tricky, and I suggest that you tries to solve this question by yourselves. Pause the video and solve it, and I'll be directly going to the answer, but if you want to try this question, it's a little bit challenging, so I encourage you to pause the video and try it yourself, right? Okay, so again, pause the video if you want to try it yourself, but if you have no clue how to solve it, then I'll be discussing it. Okay, so two trucks left simultaneously two cities X and Y for Y and X, right? So okay, so again it's like similar to the first question. The two cities X and Y, one truck left from X to Y, and the other truck left from Y to X, right? And once they arrive at their respective destinations, they turn around and move towards the starting points, right? So basically when this truck reached X, and it again turns around and starts moving towards Y, and when this truck reaches Y, it again turns around and starts moving towards X, right? Okay, so and for the first time they meet at a distance 22 kilometers from Y, and for the second time they meet at a distance 10 kilometers from X, right? Okay, so let me just put represent that visually, right? So take two distances X, to two cities X Y. So the first time they meet at this point, which is 22 kilometers from Y, okay, and at the second time they reach at this point, which is 10 kilometers from X, right? So at the first time they meet, the truck starting from X has traveled this distance, and the truck starting from Y has traveled a distance of 22 meters, right? So how do you go about solving the question? Okay, so let's start solving it by this. So the first time, let's assume the distance between X and Y to be D, okay, and so the first time it's basically the ratio of speeds of the truck starting from X and the truck starting from Y is equal to D by D minus 22, right? So they meet at a point which is in between, like not exactly in between, but which is basically 22 kilometers from city Y, and the second time they meet is at 10 kilometers from X, right? So when this truck starting from X is already at this point, so it has to finish this, which is 22 kilometers, and then again travel here, right? So which is 22 plus D minus 10 by, and the second truck which is already traveled 22 kilometers in this direction has to travel another, d minus 22 plus 10. So it has to go here and then come back and meet the truck. Both of them have to meet here again, right? So this is traveling here, and then the truck starting from Y is again going back towards Y, they meet at point 10, right? So it's d minus 22 plus 10, right? So this is the basic concept behind the question. So if you haven't understood it, then you do write in the comment section below, and I'll try explaining it there. So basically you get d by d minus 22 is equal to d plus 12 by d minus 12, right? And when you solve this equation, you get d square minus 34d plus 22 into 12, right, which is equal to 22d plus 22 into 12, right? So you cancel 22 into 12, 22 into 12, so you get d square minus 56d is equal to 0. Therefore d is equal to 56, right? So the answer is 56 kilometers. Okay, so this is just a basic question where you have to visually like represent the concept visually to understand how to solve it, right? So you try solving it by yourself. If you don't get it, then look back to the video. If you still don't get it, then do ask in the comment section. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, a train traveling 72 kilometers per hour takes 1 minute to cross a bridge. It then crosses another train B of length 100 meters, which is traveling at 60 kilometers per hour in the same direction in 90 seconds. What is the length of the bridge, right? So basically the bridge is stationary, right? So what you can consider a bridge to be is, imagine a bridge to be a train which is stationary, right? So in the previous concept of the okay, so let's solve this question now. So the question basically uses the same concept we used in the previous train question. So you will consider the bridge to be a stationary train, right? So the speed of the bridge will be 0 because it's stationary, and we'll only consider the length. So let's start off, right? So first let's take time taken by train A to cross the bridge is LA, length of train A, plus length of the bridge by speed of train A, right? So speed of train A is given in kilometers per hour. Let's convert it into meters per second. So how do you convert kilometers per hour to meters per second? You multiply it into 5 by 18, right, which is nothing but 20 meters per second. So basically it's 60 is equal to LA plus LB by 20. Therefore LA plus LB, that is length of train A plus length of the bridge, is 1200 meters. Okay, so now let's put that aside and calculate the next let's formulate the next equation. So LA plus LB is length of the bridge is 1200. Okay, now now there's another condition given where A surpasses train B, which is of length 100, and train B has a speed of 60 kilometers per hour and it's in the same direction. Okay, so how do you formulate this equation? It's basically LA plus LB by SA minus SB is equal to T, right? So time taken for train A to overtake train B. So it's pretty straightforward. So LA plus LB is given, which is 100, by the speeds of train A and train B is given with, and when you convert the speed of train B to meters per second, it is by 5 by 18, which is nothing but 50 by 3, right? So it is 20 minus 50 by 3, which is nothing but, okay, so it's LA plus 100 by 10 by 3 is equal to 90 seconds, right? So basically LA plus LB is equal to 300 meters, and we know that LB is 100. So basically now we have found the length of train A, right? So the length of train A is 200 meters, and now we know that the length of train A plus the length of the bridge is 1200. So the answer for the length of the bridge is LA plus LB is 1200, and LA we have found is 200. So the length of the bridge is 1000 meters or 1 kilometer. Okay, so this is how you solve this question, right? So keep this in mind, and if you have any doubts, ask in the comment section below. Okay, so the next question, what I want you to do is, I want you to do this question by yourself, right? So this is an escalator type of question, and it is a different type of question, right? So this question I want you guys to try, and I want you to research about how to do this question, right? Because I can explain to you, but you will have a better understanding of this particular question, if you try solving it yourself, right? So try solving it, and do put the answer in the WhatsApp group or in the comment section below, right? So if you can solve this question, then you'll be pretty much set to solve any type of question regarding escalators. So right, so try solving it by yourselves, and do post your comments on the WhatsApp groups and the comment section of this video. Okay, so this is one very important concept on speed, distance and time that all of you should know, right? So so this applies for when two people are running in a circular track of length L, and the speeds are A and B. So let's first consider time taken for them to meet for the first time ever, right? So if when they're running in the same direction, this is the formula to find the time taken by them. When they're running in opposite directions, this is the formula to find the time taken by them, right? And this is the time taken by them to meet at the first time ever, right? And the second part is time taken by them to meet at the starting point. That means not just they can't just meet anywhere. Time taken by them to meet at the first time at the starting point. So what does this mean? So to give more clarity, let's say A and B start off at a starting point. So this is basically the time at which they both will again meet at this point, right? So that is one very important thing to keep in mind. So for that, this is the equation if they run in the same direction, and this is the equation if they run this in the opposite direction. The reason this and this is the same is because they are meeting at the starting point, and so if we are considering them to meet at the starting point, it doesn't matter in which direction A and B are running. So that is one very important thing to keep in mind, and I think you'll understand it if you just take a second to think about it. Right, so the next question we are going to solve is using this concept. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so let's start off with the question. So P, Q and R with their respective speeds 9, 18 and 27 kilometers per hour run around a circular track that is 1200 meters long. If they start at the same time, same point and run in the same direction, when will they meet for the first time, right? So this question is asking that there's a circular track, there is P, Q, R, they have their own speeds, and the question asks when will they meet for the first time, when will all three meet for the first time while running around, right? So they can meet anywhere, here, anywhere. At what time will they meet for the first time? So how do you go about answering the question? You use the concept in the previous slide which I showed you. Okay, so since three people are running, you consider two people at a time, right? So consider PQ, then consider QR, then consider PR. Okay, and you take the LCM of all these to find the time taken by them to meet for the first time. Okay, so let's the track distance is given, which is 1200 meters. It's given in meters, so you'll have to convert these in meters per second. So let's convert 9 into meters per second, 5 by 18, which is basically 2.5 meters per second. So it basically comes as 2.5, 5 and 7.5. So the speed of PQR in meters per second is P is 2.5, Q is 5 meters per second and R is 7.5 meters per second. Okay, so now let's start solving the question. So when you consider P and Q together, the difference is 2.5, right? So 2.5, because running in the same direction, you subtract the speeds. So it's 1200 by 2.5, again 1200. When you consider Q and R, it's again 2.5, and when you consider P and R, it is 1200 by 5. Okay, just let me explain it to you again, like in a proper manner. Right, over here they're running in the same direction, so when they're running in the same direction, the relative speed is s1 minus s2. I hope you know that. And when when three people PQR are running in a circular direction, over here it's given in meters, so you have to convert this speed to meters per second. So it comes up as 2.5 for P, 5 meters per second for Q and 7.5 for R. Okay, so now since that is settled, how do you find the time at which they meet for the first time? So using the concept in the previous formula, we will calculate the time at which P and Q meet for the first time, Q and R meet for the first time, and then P and R meet for the first time. Calculate these times, and then find the LCM to find at what time they will all meet together for the first time. Okay, so just think about what I said here for a minute, and you will understand why we do what we do over here, right? So just think about it, and if you don't understand it, again ask in the comment section below. So we are just taking the LCM of the times, right? So when you take the LCM of the times, it will show you at what time all three of them coincide at one point and meet at that point. Okay, so now let's find the time at which P and Q meet. So P and Q meet at a time which is 2000 by 2.5. 2.5. Why? Because 5 minus 2.5, because they're running in the same direction, so relative speed is s1 minus s2. Okay, and q and r again meet at 1200 minus 2.5, again for the same reason, and p and r meet at 1200 by 5. Right, so we take the LCM of all this, which comes up to be 1200 by 2.5, which is equal to, so this is a pretty like straightforward sum. So 1200 by 2.5, which is equal to 480 seconds, right? So at when will they meet for the first time? They will meet after 480 seconds, right? So they will meet after 480 seconds, or they will meet after 8 minutes. So 8 minutes is the answer, where all three, which is P, Q and R, will meet for the first time. Okay, so that is the answer. And now let's move on to the next question. Okay, so Aman rows a distance of 4 kilometers in 1 hour in still water and 45 minutes with the current. Find the time taken by Aman to row 10 kilometers with the current and return to the starting point. Okay, so this is basically another relative speed question. Okay, so let me explain this question to you. So Aman rows a distance of 4 kilometers in 1 hour in still water. So the speed of Aman in still water is 4 kilometers per hour. Okay, or which okay, so it's 4 kilometers per hour, and 45 minutes with the current, right? So so s1 plus s of the current. So the time taken by Aman to row 4 kilometers with the current can be calculated in this manner, right? So d by s1 plus s of the current, because the current is going in direction with Aman, so it's basically pushing Aman towards the end point, right? So it's s1 plus s3 sc, which is speed of current, which is 45 minutes, or 3 by 4th of an hour. Okay, so so now using this we can find the speed of the current. So what exactly is the speed of the current? It's d by speed of Aman, which is 4, which we calculated using the first one, plus speed of the current is equal to 3 by 4. So d again is equal to 4, right? So it's basically, it comes up as 4 by 4 plus sc is equal to 3 by 4, which is equal to 16 is equal to 12 plus 3 sc. So the speed of the current is 4 by 3 kilometers per hour. Okay, so this is one important thing to keep in mind. So the speed of the current comes out to be 4 by 3 kilometers per hour. Okay, so let's note it down the side. So speed of Aman is 4k per hour, and speed of the current is 4 by 3 kilometers per hour. Okay, and so find the time taken by Aman to row 10 kilometers with the current and return to the starting point, right? So basically now we have to find the time taken by Aman to travel 10 kilometers with the current and 10 kilometers against the current, right? So how do we calculate this? It's 10 by speed of Aman plus speed of the current plus 10 by speed of Aman minus speed of the current. You'll get the answer. So what is the answer? It's 10 by 4 plus 4 by 3, which is 16 by 3, plus 10 by 8 by 3, right? So which is basically 30 by 16 plus 30 by 8, which is nothing but 90 by 16. So therefore the time taken by Aman to travel 10 kilometers up and 10 kilometers down is 90 by 16 hours, right? So 90 by 16 is approximately 5.625 hours. So this is a very simple question, and I hope you understood this. So now let's move on to the next question. Okay, so this is another trick surprise question that I have for you. So this question, just read it and try solving it yourself, and post the answer in the WhatsApp group, right? We have a prize, like, which is $100, right? So this is not about $100. It's just like incentive for you to solve this question. So take as much time needed and try solving this question, and post it with the workout, like the working out or the details of the answer. Post a picture of the solution. Okay, and I also want you to solve this question, right? So you will solve this question and the surprise question, right? And you will tell us the answer and show us the working out or of the problem. And if you do that, you will get 100, right? So for this you have to do both this question, you have to do this question and this question to be eligible to win the $100, right? So it's not about the $100, it's about you spending the time to work out the problem. Okay, so post it on the WhatsApp group. The links of the WhatsApp group will be in the description below. And if you enjoyed the presentation, then don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends, right? So thank you.